G'day folks, ZiggyD here, and I just wanted to update you on GGG's quite fast response to the community discussion surrounding the announcement of the endgame system for the Phrecia event coming up soon. Most of the responses, I think, do allay quite a few of people's concerns, actually. So I've taken the liberty of highlighting a few of these key points for you to give you a bit of a summary and some of my extra thoughts. I don't think it necessarily solves all the issues you might have with it, and that's fundamentally going to be the case because they even say that this is a system that they had already determined to not be good enough to replace the endgame system, but that's what they wanted to do with this event. Okay, sure. So let's talk about each of the responses to the various questions they brought up here. So one thing that I mentioned in my video yesterday was about the power level of the idols and my concerns about whether it would really replicate for the majority of people the power that they're getting from their Atlas tree for free. Since you do need to now find these or purchase these, there's a cost associated with that, as well as the randomness, the lack of determinism, and things like that. So you at least want them to be fairly powerful. And they have mentioned that there's going to be situations where they are substantially more powerful than what's available on the actual passive tree for scaling into specific mechanics, which is what looked to be the case. We did see some nodes or some effects on some of those idols that were substantially stronger than notables on the Atlas tree. And they have said here that each modifier is approximately 2 to 3 times the power of corresponding Atlas tree nodes. So that's kind of what they're shooting for there, with the exception of certain modifiers that would obviously be broken, such as having 100% chance to open strongboxes again. Obviously that would be problematic. You just stand there opening the same strongbox again until the end of time. I'm sure some Path of Exile players would do that. So it seems like we're potentially going to be getting a little bit of that spice that I really want to see from this system. I was hoping to see more stuff that's not on the Atlas tree, but given that this is something that they're kind of throwing together with not a lot of time as a kind of emergency response, then that's understandable that they're not going to invent a whole bunch of new systems. If they can maybe throw 1 or 2, 3 little things in there and we discover some new strategies as a result of that, plus the general power level of these idols, then it should at least be interesting, even if it is, okay, obviously this is not as good as the Atlas passive tree, but what sort of crazy shenanigans can we get up to in this 1-month event? Okay, let's think about that, maybe be open-minded towards that. So the next part was how often are we expected to find them? And that was definitely a concern I had. Like, if they're super common, then how many of these are you going to be identifying and sorting and stashing and selling and trading? If they're very rare, then that's going to cause a lot of problems for self-found and, of course, the average player, unless you're really, really going hard on trading. And I definitely think, like, there's still going to be an issue where there's going to be a lot of trading here. But they have said that there's a static chance for them to drop from bosses 50% of the time. So every map boss kill has a half chance of dropping an idol. I do like that. I quite like when the map bosses have their own set drop pool of things that can drop as extras with a fairly deterministic style. So that should help solo self-found. That should help the average player quite a bit and create a more consistent sense of progression. And that actually pairs really well with another point over here, which was, if we go into one of the earlier ones, so the map sustain issue, which is where you can get a lot of the early nodes you get are kind of built towards you getting extra map drops and sustaining. There's definitely concerns with this system that it wouldn't be able to replicate that. So they've said that they've actually added, since the reveal already, implicit modifiers to the idols down here that grant increased chance to drop maps. So all of the idols will have some sort of increased chance to drop maps. So just putting any idol on your board will kind of replicate that experience of getting those initial Atlas passives to help you progress your map pool. As a relief, it's a relief because I loved that in recent leagues. I didn't have to purchase any maps off other players to complete my Atlas, that I could reliably, with just a little bit of effort into selecting the right Atlas passive tree progression nodes, and not really like a lot of grinding or anything, I could complete my entire Atlas tree without having to buy maps, because buying maps is not fun. Not something I want to do every league, and being able to do that myself is much more rewarding and much less annoying. So that sounds like hopefully this will still achieve that, because that's effectively guaranteed. Every second map on average you're going to be getting an idol, and those idols will have built-in affixes that are always there to help with that system. So I'm pretty relieved to hear that one. So again, they have mentioned this is like a throwaway idea, that they don't intend to replace the Atlas passive tree. And part of that was that they weren't going to put the effort into developing quality of life features, but I think given the excitement people had for this event, and also the response to this reveal, they've decided to develop some of the quality of life features a bit. So they've announced that they're going to be implementing a loadout system for the idols as well, so that you'll be able to swap between, say, 3 idol boards, so you can have different idol boards for different strategies. So that's an immense improvement, because that was one of my concerns as well, that like respecking between the different atlas trees and having different atlas trees for different strategies was very fun, satisfying, and effective. The changes they've made in recent leagues to that for Path of Exile 1's endgame is really good, so that felt like a big step backwards with this system, replacing the atlas tree. And so that's good to hear that there's going to be a loadout system for that. It's still not going to be as easy to like build a new strategy, and you're still going to have a bit of idle lock-in where these modifiers are, you know, tied to idols that have other stuff on them you don't want necessarily. So there are some concerns there still, but this is a big improvement. The other parts here, so was there some sort of meta progression system? Because that wasn't clear. And they have mentioned that there are initially locked slots that will be unlocked by getting your favorite map slots, the same way that you do that unlocks board slots on the Relic board. So you start with 20 and you unlock to get to 32 eventually slots. So I think that picture was showing the full 32. There would always be some blockers on there just to kind of like encourage you to have some different layouts, which kind of makes sense for this sort of system there. They mentioned there's going to be like a rewards for the event and stuff, and it's going to be based on Settlers League, which is quite cool. I loved Settlers League, phenomenal. But some people are rightfully a little bit bothered by the idea of having to re-upgrade their town again for maybe a 3rd time if they've played all of the Settlers things so far, maybe a 4th if they've played a private league. So they are making early upgrades, in particular, cheaper in the Settlers League, so they're going to make that progression a bit smoother, and that'll affect all Settlers-related content moving forwards. It sounds like Settlers might be sticking around in some capacity, at least maybe as a private league mod, if not in other ways, or just as a core feature maybe. I'm open to it. I like it. I don't love the idea of fully upgrading the town every league, but I quite like Settlers overall personally. Not everyone does, but it was one of my favorite leagues of all time, so I'm pretty happy to hear that. This was a direct response here to people, including myself, mentioning that this could be a testing thing for PoE 2. I'm a little sad to read that no, it's not actually, as from their perspective, considered to be a test for Path of Exile 2, because this was an idea that they had in the past and didn't like, and didn't want to make a core thing. They thought it was interesting, but not good enough to make into an actual core feature, so they don't really have a plan to use it for anything outside of potential private league modifiers that you can optionally add in yourself. So I'm sure that will be a potential relief to other people. But I like this idea for PoE 2, so I'm kind of somewhat sad about that. Like I'm not offended by the idea of you experimenting with concepts and then using it to inform future development. That's how game development works. The entirety of Path of Exile 2 is informed by various things they've done in PoE 1. So, but either way, if you were bothered by that, they have addressed that directly. They've also mentioned that the 1 month league, many people are like, if I get kind of into this, it's like, that's ultimately pretty short. Does that mean it just kind of ends around 2 months, two weeks really? And then, you know, you're kind of done at that point. What's happening is 326 coming out right at the end of it. It sounds like they're still pretty unclear on when 326 is coming. That's pretty obvious, I think, given kind of how they hadn't started on it yet, and now they're kind of somewhat scrambling to try and get this event together and to a satisfactory degree for people to tide you over. So they're saying that they have the idea that they can extend this or add other events in the future until 326 is ready. So it's still unclear when 326 is coming for PoE 1. And that also means it's still unclear when Path of Exile 2's next update is coming. They did originally say that it would be Path of Exile 2's next update would happen first, so I'm guessing that's a bit over a month away. And then we probably will start to get some 326 news sometime after that, some weeks or a month after that perhaps. So might be a couple months before 326 yet, folks, but hopefully this event and potentially other events are indeed interesting. Another thing someone brought up that I didn't mention in the video yesterday was the idea of blocking mechanics. Already you have the idea that these idols are going to have an issue where you potentially, like, I don't know, let's say you add legions to your maps, but you don't want to do legion, but, you know, those idols are otherwise good for other things. You can't really, like, avoid that. And it wasn't clear as to whether the nodes that allow you to disable mechanics would be available, but they have said that those will be available as unique idols. So hopefully those unique idols are pretty common. I anticipate that they will be, so they're probably going to be, 1 alch items or whatever. So hopefully that is indeed the case. And I think that covers the idol system, the relic system for the endgame. I still feel that the Atlas system is better. They agree. Okay. The fact that they've said that, and they've said that this is not intended for core, I mean, that was obvious, but just to reiterate that, that's good. Just reiterating that this is an event with their dumb ideas. And I like that idea. I'm okay with that idea. I think this probably would have been more fun as an add-on to the Atlas for this event, and trying to unpack that feeling. I think that's because for less myself, but for many of you that are really keen for something for Path of Exile 1, have been eagerly awaiting 326 or something, that this is your stand-in for the League. This maybe doesn't feel like just a random little throwaway short event. So even though contextually, the idea of having dumb ideas, a silly, fun, scuffed League event thing is fine, when it's acting as an actual stand-in for a real League for you, maybe it feels a bit less fine that maybe you might be, and if this gets extended for longer than a month, playing without an Atlas passive tree for longer than a month. Ultimately, time will tell. If people play for 2 weeks and it's just the Atlas passive tree is way more fun, and this is a bummer, then I'm sure GGG will take that into account and not extend this event or do different things with the follow-up events. So I'm somewhat relieved by kind of their approach and mindset to this, as it seems. I've been on kind of a roller coaster of emotions surrounding this somewhat. Really, they could have done nothing and I would be fine playing PoE2 still at the moment. I'm still enjoying that game enough that I'm pretty okay. But so I was like, oh, if they're just going to do something they've done before, like Endless Door or whatever, I'll skip it and keep playing PoE2. But then they showcased some of these Ascendancy classes, and I'm like, oh, I think I might have to play this event. This looks too interesting. And it's not as if I dislike the current state of Path of Exile 1. In fact, it's been my favorite ever. So I didn't part with Path of Exile 1 on bitter terms. I've been satisfied to keep going with PoE2 right now. I know not all of you agree, but that's me. So I'm like, yes, all right, I'm jumping into this. This looks exciting. And then I'm like, oh no, one of my favorite things about Path of Exile 1 right now is the Atlas passive tree, and I was I'm really excited about this relic system, but then they're scrapping it for they're scrapping the passive tree, the thing that's the best part of the end game currently right now, effectively. So it sounds like it's probably going to be a bit better than I feared. It's probably going to be a bit more powerful than it maybe looked on first glance. In addition to the fact that they're kind of last minute boosting things a bit here, adding implicits and stuff like that, and probably doing a passover just to make sure that these modifiers are indeed impactful. I think a lot of my initial concerns from yesterday are still real. They're still there. We are going to have to trade more. We are going to have to handle these items. It's going to be less deterministic progression. It's going to be probably less good than the Atlas passive tree. It's going to be a less good endgame, probably, overall. From a long-term perspective. If it was going core, I would definitely be very panicked, but it's not going core. It's a thing for probably just a month, and it is going to be an opportunity to break the game a bit, because it does seem like there are going to be strategies where you can really go hard on a specific thing more than you could before. Maybe it's going to be a bit more effortful and less smooth to get there, but okay, we can have some fun with some broken strategies potentially. So then they also revealed some additional ascendancies, including this fishing ocean man ascendancy for the shadow that we're seeing here right now. I'm like, okay, all right. You got me again. I'm in again. We're back. So look at this thing. If you haven't seen it yet, you should definitely take a look at some of these ascendancies. I'm not going to cover them all in this video, but I just had to point out how hilarious this one is. 50% more cast speed while holding a fishing rod. Oh my lord. I think you have to wear Fairgrave's tricorns to get fishing rods to drop normally. So there's going to be some fun stuff to explore that we've never had a reason to explore outside of obviously just fishing. There's some really cool stuff in this, like chill reversal effects, like full elemental conversion, this like guaranteed freezes. This thing that's just 30% move speed, attack and cast speed always. Oh my god, how fast is this thing gonna be? 50% more cast speed while holding fishing rod plus 30 move speed and cast speed. Oh my, zooming. That's very fun. They showed a few other ones that look really cool as well. The Ranger one looks amazing. So these Ascendancies look like they're going to be a bit of fun to mess around with for a while, for sure. So, okay, I'm back on board to looking forward to this one. And I appreciate GGG's rapid response to this in there. Kind of also willingness to listen to what was probably a bit of a reaction from some of us, maybe. Possibly including myself, anyway. We're emotional, man. We love this game. It happens. They understand. I think they understand. Anyway, that's it for now, folks. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.